Welcome to Coffee Charge Conversations here at Real Global Productions. Today we are joined by Octaviah Rajchl. Oki, good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
How did you find your first ice bath today?
Easier than I thought it would be. I lasted longer than I thought I would. I thought it was going to be a jump in and out. It was really good. Feeling good afterwards, energized.
And I think it's one of those things, like we said, where it's the same with running, I find, because I started running recently.
What do you mean recently?
Well, okay,
we used to run a lot back in the day.
We used to gym a lot, but maybe not running. And I feel like since I've started running, I find that if I'm doing 5Ks, after 3Ks, I start getting a bit tired. And if I'm doing 10Ks, then after 7 or 8Ks, I start getting tired. And you said the same thing for the ice bath. You're like, oh, I might just do like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, what's the lowest that anyone's done? And you ended up doing close to 4 minutes. So, yeah.
Probably should have gotten longer, but anyway.
So we obviously knew each other in varsity.
Yeah.
And since then, you went on to study in Hungary, of all places. And you're doing veterinary medicine at the moment.
Finally. It's a long path, but I'm there.
What does veterinary medicine entail, and why did you choose to go that path?
Well, I started at Tux, wanting to get into honest to put, but never got in. So I was like, okay. So then I tried, but then obviously varsity and you're living by yourself for the first time and you're 18 years old and got this newfound freedom. Then I didn't get in for the first year and the second year. And then my mom suggested Hungary to me. And I said, no, let me just finish my degree. So I finished the BSc zoology. And then I had a major mental breakdown throughout that because I didn't want to study zoology and there was no plan B other than vet. So I was like, okay. Then I applied for Hungary on a whim one day. And then they were like, you got in. You don't have to do the entrance exam. You just have to do an interview. I said, okay, cool. And then they're like, you in? Like the first thing they said in the interview. So I was like, okay, sick. And it was the easiest yes I've ever said. I didn't really think about anything else, but just going to study vet.
And do you feel like you have to be someone that loves animals to get involved in veterinary medicine?
Well, I guess there's different levels. Like there are people that love animals but aren't exactly animal people, if that makes sense. So if you love animals and you keep your 16-year-old dog alive just because you want it alive, because you love it, rather than looking at the bigger picture and being like, well, it's sick, it's living on medication, it's probably better to put it down. I think that's when you understand the animal a bit more than just love it. So you kind of have to separate your love for animals and like the logical thing to do. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't be able to put an animal down, but as a vet, you have to look at the bigger picture. Or like production animals, for example. I never thought I'd be able to handle that section of it because, no one wants to spend money on them more than they should, so they could have hoof problems, but they don't want to put money into fixing them. So a lot of like the dairy cows will be limping into the parlor to get the milk, but you kind of have to understand like how it all comes together. They say veterinary medicine is part of the One Health organization where like medicine, veterinary, everything kind of comes into play, because if you didn't have vets, you wouldn't have production animals, you wouldn't have pets, you wouldn't have anything. So, I think they said the one article, it takes like 7 vets to process everything that needs to go into a lasagna. It's a stupid example, but the beef, the dairy, everything that goes into, yeah.
And was there like a particular moment in your life where you're like, that's what I want to do?
I think I was 6. And since there was just never a plan B. And I really try to think of a plan B when BSc wasn't working or I hated studying it. I was like, there has to be a plan B. I was like, personal trainer? No. I was like, maybe I can become a makeup artist? No. If you put your mind to it, you could be whatever you wanted in the world. But you have to do what makes you happy, I suppose.
And I've never really seen you... Okay, never is a strong word, but like I think at the moment you're the most passionate that I've seen you.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
that shows that you're doing something that you actually love and care about. When you were studying in the early days, it was a completely different story. You know?
No, I hated studying BSc. But I mean, it's interesting stuff. Like, I want to study it. It's not like I just have to get through this degree to get into vet. This is my job. This is what I'm going to do. I mean, you can't just decide I'm not going to study this section of antibiotics, and then you get into the real world, and then you're like, you've killed something, or, you know, something's going downhill. So you kind of have to take note of a lot of things.
What kind of character traits do you need to be a good vet?
I think it depends where you want to go, because vet's quite broad. I mean, you can be in an office doing companion animals, so dogs and cats, or you can be a wildlife vet, and that's a lot of field work and darting, or so for example, like companion animals, I feel like your emotions need to be in check, because you can't be sobbing with the person that's just put their dog down. You need to be like, it's okay, don't worry, it was the best decision. Whereas wildlife's not too emotional, because you kind of have to let like animals do animal things. Like, you can't really get involved. So it really depends on where you go. I mean, if you want to go, I want to go into horses. So if you want to go into horses, you've got to deal with horse people, which are a different breed by themselves. So yeah, and I mean, like, a lot of people will spend a lot more money on their horse, because now they've spent horses can go up to millions of rand, you know, so it depends. So they've spent all this money on their horse. If their horse needs something minor, they're willing to spend thousands on it. Whereas if you've got a dog that needs like a 40 grand surgery, the owner kind of thinks twice, or they might put the dog down before fixing it. And so yeah, there's a broad, I mean, you can even go into like meat safety and all of that as a vet. So it depends where.
I would almost say that you have to be a bit of a selfless person to get involved in wanting to help animals. Just like if you were a doctor or anything like that, you have to have that selfless side in order to want to help others more than yourself sometimes.
Yeah, no, you do. But I think a lot of vets also get sidetracked a bit with that. You need thick skin, because a lot of people will come to you and be like, I don't have money, but my dog's dying. And you kind of have to be like, okay, well, I can't help you.
Yeah.
Because things cost money. I mean, in order to help, even if a dog dies, for example, if a dog comes in with an emergency poisoning or something, and the vet does everything they can to help it, but it ends up dying at the end of the day, and then you get like a 10 grand bill, you have to pay that. I mean, they've used the syringes, they've used medicine, they've used everything to help this dog, so you kind of have to pay. But a lot of people will be like, well, I'm not paying now, but it can't come out of your pocket. So I do think you need to be selfless, but you also need to set boundaries, which I think could be quite hard. Because I don't know if I'd be able to say no to a dying dog. But that's why I'm not going into companion animals. Like, I know my limits, type thing. Whereas, yeah, it could be hard.
And how do you handle your emotions when dealing with, critically ill animals?
It sounds harsh, but I think you kind of get desensitized to it. I mean, like my first year of vet school, you start not operating, like dissecting dogs. And I thought I'd struggle with that as well, but you get used to it. It's just kind of like another day in the lab. But I mean, some of the dogs still have their collars on, or, you know, you can tell it's someone's pet, or it kind of looks like your dog, and you're like, But from that point, it starts getting easier. And I mean, I'm really involved in rescue work, and that alone, I mean, you kind of get
desensitized.
You kind of get numb to it. I mean, you can get a whole litter of puppies and like 3 of them die, but you can't sit there crying because you've still got like 7 of them to bottle feed. So.
And has that helped you? Has that helped you in your life at all? Kind of taking emotions out of it?
Yes and no. I think I can be a bit harsh with it. I think it's a bit easy for me to cut off people and completely just separate my emotions, which can be good and can be bad. I personally think it's helped me a lot, but maybe I should be a bit more sensitive.
In what ways?
Like with friends that have maybe meant a lot to me, it's quite easy for me to be like, okay, this friend group or this doesn't serve me, so I need to move on to the next friend group, but then just like cut them off completely. But I think I need to be more aware of other people's emotions when it comes to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. But at the same time, you've also got a very soft side to you and a very warm side to you.
Yeah, thank you.
And you started the foster babies feet Octavia.
Yes, I did.
What's that all about?
Well, that was more to raise awareness for the puppies I had in fostering, or if anyone was looking to adopt a cat or a dog, or if I needed funds then people could see what I was doing and not just me thinking I was taking the money for myself, because it really wasn't. Like, I put a lot of time and effort and money into all the fosters and rescues I got. And it helped a lot. A lot of the puppies actually got adopted off of that page. A lot of hopeless cases as well, which I never thought. Like, I'd get a foster and I was like, you are not pretty, but let's do our best. And yeah, I mean, they've all got adopted so far, except for the one, but he's just a troubled case. So.
And how can someone help out?
Well, I usually put in like the bio what rescue organization I'm working with. So if they do want to donate, I'd rather them donate directly to the rescue organization and not to me. But there has been a case where the rescue was full and someone phones you and you can't really say no to like 10 puppies type thing. So that's when I did reach out to Instagram and I got a really good response. And then like with that page, you can show them, okay, you donated 200 Rand. This is what I got with it. This is the dog you helped. And I think it makes it more like personal, like you're not just spending money for the sake of it.
Yeah, but you've always had that caring side, as I say. And
oh, thanks, Mike.
Yeah. No, it shows. Like I can always sense that energy when someone cares about more than just themselves.
Yeah, but I think I care a bit more about animals than I do about people. But I mean, that's why we're into vet and not human medicine.
What is it about people that turns you off in a way compared to animals?
I think they're very selfish. They're very self-absorbed. And I feel like people can make better decisions for themselves, whereas an animal is just an animal. Like, they just want to survive. So, like, if there's a kid begging on the street, they're probably going to get more money, but they get the help. They get the money. People are more likely to help people than animals. So
what can we as humans learn from animals?
Loyalty, I think. I mean, if you get a dog, even if you get the most neglected dogs, they are still so easy to trust. People, they can turn their lives around a lot and they will literally die for you. Whereas people are, like I said, selfish, and they're really easy to turn, or they're really easy to stab you in the back. Like, you don't really know who you can trust at the end of the day, unless you've gone through a lot together. So I guess it's easier to trust animals than it is to trust people.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they say a dog's like a man's best friend.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, no animal has any ill intentions. They've got no malicious intent. Like, if they are biting...
I don't know. When I see a snake, I think differently. But maybe that's just the way it's portrayed in the movies and in the Bible and all of that.
No, I'm the exact same. If
I
someone
feel like
comes
they
to
don't
me,
like me.
Yeah, if someone comes to me with a snake as a vet, I'm referring to a different doctor. It's not me that's going to treat the snake. But I mean, I think you have to have, like, if you have a respect for the snake and you know what they can do, like, you're going to let it carry on with its thing. You're not going to be like, oh, I want to touch the snake. Like, no, you know it could kill you. So you're like scared of it, but you also have like a respect for it. Like, you're not going to destroy its home or anything. You're going to just let it do what it needs to do. So
going back to veterinary medicine,
yeah.
What kind of advancements are there at the moment, or like, are there any breakthroughs that could happen that excite you in the field of veterinary medicine?
I guess so, but they always bring it back to people. So they'll like use animals for advancements for people. I'm quite interested in horses though, and like bones, so orthopedics and all of that. So I think more where a lot of people, like, it's the done practice, like if a horse breaks its leg, you shoot it, or I mean, that sounds hectic, but that's sometimes how you put down a horse.
Yeah.
And then more of the things that people have just accepted, that's the general practice. I'd like to explore more what else is there to do, or how else can you help an animal rather than just putting it down type thing.
Is there like a certain issue that's very prevalent in veterinary medicine at the moment? Which one would you like to fix the most? Put it that way.
You know, that's a hard question, because half of me wants to just go where the animals need the most help and just spend my life helping them. But that's not realistic, because I do need to think of myself and the lifestyle I want to live. Like, I don't really want to be living in a shack dealing with, you know, what you can to help the animals. So I don't know. There's lots of issues. Like, it depends where you want to go with veterinary medicine.
It's difficult though, because I think we're all at that age where you're trying to figure out what your passion is, but you're also trying to build a career, make a bit of money, get a bit of financial security.
Like, I know my career is going to be horses, and I want to deal with surgery and orthopedics, but my heart will always lie in the rescue work. I mean, I've done it since I was 9, I think. So I'll never stop that. And even if I have to dedicate my time or a little bit of resources or whatever, there'll always be space for that as well. And I think a lot of vets kind of forget why they started vet. So they'll get too involved in the career aspect, but then forget about the outreach part or whatever. And then I think that's why a lot of them maybe get depressed, or because suicide and that's very high. I mean, our first lecture we had, they're like, look, you've got all these medications available to you, please don't use them on yourselves.
Sure.
And I was like, no. And then
like, no one does that. Yeah.
Apparently it's
wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of vets use their own medicines on themselves.
Why do you think that is just that stressful?
I think it's stressful, but I think the owners expect a lot out of a vet. And I also think, like, you've worked, I mean, when I'm done, I've nearly done 10 years of studying, and a lot of time and money has been put into studying. I mean, my degree now, it's like 12.6 thousand euros a year, which is like 250k or 220 or something, I don't know, fluctuates with the exchange rate. And that's not including like your accommodation and the instruments you have to buy and all of that. And a lot of people look at vets and they're like, well, you're not a real doctor, or I don't want to pay you. Why are you so expensive? And you're like, I'm just trying to pay back student loans or something, you know, like, so yeah.
And moving to Hungary, that was obviously a big change for you.
Yeah.
I mean, we studied together here, and all of a sudden, check my Instagram and it's like, Oki's in Hungary.
Budapest.
Yeah, Budapest.
So they've got an English course, and they've got a huge South African community there. So I think there's like 50 plus of us now in the university there, which is quite cool because you've got like your own little family. And it's helped a lot being over there. And they all can't get into veterinary at honest to put either. And I mean, I'm not even upset for myself, but there are people there that have masters that couldn't get into OP. There's people that have masters, have worked, vet nurses, this, that still can't get into OP. Like, they've got 80s, 90s. So I don't really know how the system works. I mean, the one friend even compared like her marks to another friend's marks to see why her friend got in and not her. And hers were better, like everything. And honestly,
it's
like,
just the way the cookie
I don't know.
crumbles.
I can't answer why she got in over you type thing.
Sure.
So.
And what challenges did you initially face moving to a new country, studying there?
Well, my first time overseas was when I had to go study. Life's really different there. Like, you've got the public transport, you've got different languages, different cultures. I mean, they all speak Hungarian. If you go to the Czech Republic, they all speak Czech. Like, it's a lot of people don't speak English, which is hard.
Yeah.
Especially like the people you need, like the government officials. Now you're there trying to get an immigration permit, and they're like, no English, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But the beggar on the side of the road has no problem. He's like, hey. I'm like, well, the one person I need to speak English can't. So that was quite hard. You walk everywhere. South Africa, we have a lot of luxuries as well. Like I got to the till and I was like, why is no one, I didn't have a bag with me. No one was packing my bag. And I was like, oh, and they're like, come hurry up. And
It's
you're
like
okay.
self-sufficient, yeah.
Yeah, so now, you sit at the till and it's like a race. And you're trying to put it in your bag to go. So yeah, and everything kind of works there. So that's also a bit, you can't just run across the road and all of that. And there's a lot of times where, like, a stupid example, the light goes green, that little green man says you can cross the road. I never crossed the road. I was like, someone's going to run me over, but cars actually wait.
Yeah, they do. Not here.
No, not here.
Yeah, we don't have green lights.
No.
They usually don't work.
No, it's just a suggestion sometimes. But yeah, it was a big mind shift change as well, because now you're away from everyone you love, your family, Tane, my boyfriend. Like, it's a big, you're by yourself now. Like, you've got to, if you have a bad day, like, you've met all these new people now, and although they're South African, in the beginning you can't just have a bad day, because you new friends, and now they're going to be like, oh, okay, we don't want to hang around with her because she's a bit of a bitch or whatever. But no, I'm just grumpy. Like,
what did you figure out about yourself then in that time alone, away from friends and family?
You can be super independent, and you don't really need anyone to do what you want to do in life. Like, a lot of people, I think, are codependent on friends or family, or they need them, but you don't.
Did you feel like that before you left?
Not really. I've always been quite independent, but I think with a lot of my relationships kind of lacked a bit of communication, because for example, with Tane, like, before you could just kiss each other and that was a form of, like, communication, or holding hands or hugging, whereas now you're overseas and all those things you relied on, like making your mom a cup of tea as gratitude or whatever, like to say thanks for something, like, that's all changed. Now it's all through the phone, so now you have to
say how you feel
and, like, really be in touch with your emotions, which
well, you're doing it again.
Which is it was hard in the beginning, but you learn how to get support in different ways, I suppose. Yeah.
So they say about 40% of long distance relationships fail.
Really?
How did you make it work for you?
Well, in the beginning it was hard. And my boyfriend's love language is definitely, like, touch and feel and all of that. So I think he struggled a bit more than I did. But then I struggled because our communication wasn't great in the beginning. Like, when I say, how was your day? It was just like, good, whatever. And I was like, no, but, like, give me more. But as we learned and everything, and you've got to be more open with, like, how you're feeling, and look, I need more of this from you, like, over the phone, or I need more of this. And then we came to, like, an agreement. Like, for example, he was like, but I'd message him and he would never reply, and he's like, but you don't call me. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of small things that add up. And then if there's a goal at the end to be together, that helps a lot as well. So I said to him, I was like, if you move to Europe, I will move wherever you are at the end of the day after vet. So there's, like, a common goal at the end. And then with, like, don't even say temptations, because I was never tempted, but, like, people in clubs, or if you're drinking or whatever, there was never, you see someone, you're like, okay, they're good looking.
Yeah.
But is a hookup really worth getting rid of all the development and everything you've done with your boyfriend overseas? I mean, in South Africa.
Yeah.
Like, I look at Tane and I'm like, you, my husband, like, my future husband. I can see you being the father to my kids. If you look at some random hot guy, like, he's not much really in the bigger scheme of things.
Yeah.
Like, all the qualities I want in my future are in Tane. So why stuff it up?
That's amazing, actually.
Like, over a few years, it's just 2 more years and then I'm done. So.
And being more in touch, being forced to be more in touch with your emotions, how has that affected your life?
I think in a really positive way. Like, you kind of realize who you need in your life and who's negatively influencing your life as well. So if you're really honest with yourself and your emotions, you kind of know what company to keep around yourself. And I think it's good, because I could be quite cold.
Yeah.
previously.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes I
now,
didn't know. You had a poker face that was very good. So I didn't know if like
yeah.
you were happy, sad, angry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was a problem in the past. Like I would, like silly examples, like ending it with someone you've been with for a few months, whatever. They'd be like, "It's ended," and I'd be like, "Cool,
Yeah.
okay, sick," and they'd be like, "But are you happy, sad?" I'm like, "It is what it is. Like it's okay. Don't worry, friend." But I mean, then again, if you look back and you're honest with yourself, like, were those relationships, did they even, were they productive, or could you grow with the person or anything? Like, no.
Yeah.
So the more honest you are with yourself, the more your future relationships will be better, like friendships, romantic relationships, family, anything. So
Yeah.
I think it's just being honest with yourself, really.
And it's not always easy to do because you've got the ego in the way,
Yeah.
telling you who you need to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like once you start figuring out who you really are, you start to realize which people you want to keep in your life.
No, 100%.
Who you want to surround yourself with.
So, yeah, I mean, that's also played a part in it. Like when you finally have a path and you're like, okay, this is where I want my future to go. Like I've got a pretty clear vision of my future, and whether it happens or not, like that's what I'm striving towards. Like all the people that were around, you kind of start like cutting them off or moving away, and it actually helps you a lot more.
But it feels like people just start like dissipating, like all of a sudden, like you don't even realize it, and someone you used to spend a lot of time with, like work gets in the way and things happen, and all of a sudden you don't forget about that person, but they're not a part of your life anymore.
But I like to think about it as like you have got different stages in your life, and you've got people that fit those stages, and if you don't have someone that's growing with you, then you need someone else for the next stage of your life. So like, for example, with Tane and I, when we first started dating, we were still in varsity, we were still in the joining phase, we'd still have commune parties and go out and drink and all of that. So that was one phase of our life. But then we grew together with the next phase of our life. So it's like, if he was still in that phase, but I was in a different phase, it wouldn't really work. And then it was like okay, you moving overseas, and it was a long distance phase. It was like, okay, now we've got to make this work, and what do you want out of this? And then you're like, okay, then it's the next phase. Like, what's the next future phase? And if you're willing to grow with someone, then it's fine. They must stay part of your life. But if you've got someone that's stuck in phases, if you stay with them or stay friends with them, you're going to keep yourself in a phase you don't want to be in.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've found out who my real friends are, and I'm still figuring out. It's not like I know everything in terms of that, but like I know who my drinking friends are as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know who, like, I'll call when I want to have a good time, for sure.
Yeah.
But they're not going to be the people I call when I really need help, or if I need to open up about something.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely done me a world of good, just figuring out who.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the friends that you thought were your best friends, and you're never ever going to let them go. If they're not growing with you and they're not supporting the person you want to become, then they're not really. You still love them, but they're just not really.
And what have you learned since kind of figuring out who your friends, who your real friends are?
You don't need that many friends.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've got really good friends in Budapest now, which are basically like family. So in my first year in Budapest, I lived with 4 guys, which was interesting. But I mean, I lived with 24 people with you.
Yeah, that was
and
a
there were
hectic
like 17 guys. But in European countries, like you're really in confined spaces. Like we had gardens and pools and bathrooms, and now I was sharing a bathroom with 2 other guys, and like you could hear through walls and all of that. So, they, like, a lot of those people also, like, I don't really speak to now, but a lot of them have become family. Like I've moved in with another guy, and he's literally like my brother. So you kind of create family relationships over friends, and they're all very supportive. And like now I've made new international friends, like Germans, and they're very honest and straightforward, and like that's what I want in my life. So
Yeah.
that's also really cool. But it's also a bit hard because they're still in like third year mentality when we were third year mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you find it hard to make friends overseas?
Yeah.
Because I've got quite a few friends that moved overseas, and they were very charismatic, like bubbly people. But when they went overseas, they kind of went a bit more into their shell, and they found it a lot harder to make friends.
I mean, it is hard if you think about it. Everyone kind of sticks in their cultural groups or groups that are similar. Like in the first year, I stuck to South Africans, but not necessarily because I'd be friends with them, just based on the fact that they're South African and I'm South African. And then in my second year, I was like, I don't want to really be friends with a lot of these people. Well, they're still great and they're still really good people, but a lot of them didn't really align with me or friendship. So then I was like, well, let's just branch out. And in my first year, I was very to myself, and I studied a lot because I had to do 2 in 1. So I did first and second year in 1 year, which took a lot of my time. Like I knew my triangle. I had home, gym, varsity, and that was it. Like I wouldn't really go out. I'd feel too guilty to go out. And then the second year, you kind of realize, okay, I'm in this country. Let me make the most of it.
Yeah.
And then I started branching out more to other cultures, other friends. And then, yeah, I think the first year is always the hardest because you got to find your footing. You miss everyone. You just want to go home. But then once you realize, okay, I'm here. Let me make this my home. Then I think it becomes a little bit easier to branch out and make friends.
And obviously that must, like you said, must have been quite difficult to go to another country and experience a new language, new culture, new people, and now you're like on your own. But what did you enjoy the most about getting outside of like your home country?
I'm not gonna lie, I was quite bitter towards Hungary when I first got there because I was like, I miss everyone. And the people are quite cold, Eastern Europeans, and if you don't speak their language or their culture, they're quite like closed off. But I'm learning to open up more. And yeah, what was the question again? Sorry.
What did you enjoy like about getting outside of SA, I guess?
I think a more worldly perspective. I think a lot of people have like tunnel vision when they're here and they get a job here and they think this is the be all and end all, and then the job will give them like a 500 Rand promotion and they're like, woohoo, I'm doing so well. Meanwhile, they're just keeping you there because they don't want you to leave. Like you're stuck in the loop of South African jobs but over there, you kind of realize there's a lot more to the world than South Africa. I mean, South Africa is great and there's lots of opportunities here, but there's a lot more overseas. Like for example, Tane, before he traveled, he thought like this was the best place for his work, whatever. Then he traveled and he was like, this is unbelievable. Like there's a whole new world out there. There's a whole lot more opportunities. Like it was like a epiphany moment for him. He was like, oh, what? And I was like, yeah. And I think a lot of people are stuck here. A lot of people, and I'm not saying South Africa is terrible. I'm just saying
they're not free to open their mind up to possibilities of somewhere else if they can afford it, I guess. Yeah,
but you can at this age. You just got to risk it and just go. Even if it's for a year or two, if you just get out of your hometown and experience a different life. I mean, here we still have a safety net. You still have your parents. You still have friends. You're never going to be, you're never going to have that moment when you're like, oh, crap, what am I going to do now? Like, I literally have nothing. Or you're going to go over and you're going to be like, this is the best thing ever. And you're going to find so many more opportunities and meet different people. And I mean, every single culture is different, from the Germans to the Hungarians to the Czechs. I mean, we've got people from Dubai, we've got people from the UK. Like, they all have different ways of thinking and ways of doing things, and you pick up on that.
So how has your perspective on the world changed since you've left South Africa, I guess?
The world's smaller than we think it is. Everything's a flight away. can get anywhere you need to, and the world's very connected. I mean, you go to Budapest and you find connections through people you know or things you see all the way back to South Africa. And I've realized, like, you've just got to take the risk and do it. Like, there's so many people out there and there's so many opportunities. So yeah.
I think we often forget, though, like I'll speak for myself. I mean, I often forget how small the world actually is.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
I mean, obviously you bump into people and you know the same person and you're like, oh, small world. But when you look at Earth compared to the rest of the universe, it's like we think we are so significant and important, and really at the end of the day, no one cares. I mean,
exactly.
it's quite scary. When the Queen died, it was like a few weeks or whatever that everyone was like going crazy about it. Now you don't hear people talk about it, and she's one of the most famous people to ever live.
But I mean, and that's also when, so you ask someone what they want to do and they say they want to change the world. You can't really do that. Like, you can
have an impact. I guess it defines how you, how you define change.
Yeah, no, true. But the world's really big and interconnected, and there's so many different cultures in this, and you can have an impact definitely. But unfortunately, once you like pass on or whatever, your impact might not be there, or it will live through other people. But if you like solely focus on yourself and your self-development, and someone meets you and they're like, oh, Mike's such a cool guy, and they keep a value, they keep a value that they have learned from you and they pass it on to their kids, I think that's making more of an impact on the world than if you've got this big picture of, I'm gonna, I don't know, solve pollution or whatever. But if you're like, okay, let me really work on one project and take it to, let's say, an underdeveloped country and teach them how to do this, I think that's going to make a bigger difference than, I don't know, recycling in your 3 bins or something like that. Not saying great, you must recycle, you must do that.
You're not saying recycling's bad thing.
No, it's a great thing. But I think if people just focus more on smaller parts and the spreading of that, then the bigger picture of, I mean, for me, I can't be like, I'm going to rescue all the dogs. I'm going to, that's an unrealistic goal. You need to have more of a
step by step.
Or I'm going to teach this community. Because, I mean, a lot of people come to me and they're like, do I need to spay and neuter my dogs? I mean, they're brother and sister, they're not going to mate. And I'm like, well, they definitely will. And you're definitely going to have more puppies in this world. So more, I don't know, I think education-based things.
So your mindset, I guess I've seen it because it's almost like 1 year it clicked at varsity, and like you said, it was like you realized you needed to spend time with people that were boosting you up, and you became more intentional with your time, your relationships with people who you spent your time with. What brought about that mental shift?
I think living in the commune helped a lot because there were a lot of different people and they were focused on a lot of different things. I mean, you had the engineers, you had the medical students, you had the jollers, you had there was a whole lot of different people to look at and take inspiration from. Whereas if you're living by yourself or with one other person or whatever, you kind of
limit yourself.
Or you just focus on you and that person. Whereas in the commune, there were so many different people to go to. I mean, we went to gym together. I'd go on walks with San. I would.
I hated it when you took me to gym.
Yeah.
Because you always made me do those classes. And I just wanted to, I've never been someone who loves gym.
Yeah.
So for me, I wanted to do my weights 45 minutes, maybe an hour tops, feel a bit better mentally, get out of there. And you're always like, no, Mike, we're doing this hectic gym class. And I remember the instructor, I mean, I'll never forget her. It's a little bit of trauma for me. But there were 2 guys who did the class and maybe 10 girls, which is kind of like, it was nice for me and my
and
mates
the
at
first
the
time you
time.
walked in there, you're like, it's gonna be easy.
And I thought, okay, maybe it's also a cool way to like network with the other girls in the class. But I was definitely wrong, because that instructor always used to like point me out when I did like 6 reps instead of 10, and she had the microphone in the front, and I remember that being horrible.
But in that respect as well, like with more people, I mean, I've got someone that will always come to gym with me, or someone that will come study with me, or, you know, there's always someone to do something if you want to better yourself. Whereas if you by yourself, it's kind of just up to you. Like, even if you were like, come, Aki, we're going to gym, I'd be like, I don't want to go to gym. And you're like, no, come, we're doing this. Or, I used to run with Chris and Connor and all of that. They'd be like, come, we go on a run. I was like, I don't want to run. And they're like, well, we're going. So it's nice to get out of your own headspace, I suppose.
Because it's very easy to get those friends that are like, oh no, man, you've had a tough week. Like, come, let's go for a drink.
Yeah, let's go for a drink. Why are you going to
so
gym?
nicely, and you're like, oh, you're probably right. And
Or why are you studying? You've studied so hard this week. Meanwhile, you've flipped through a few pages and you're not really doing much, you know.
What new habits or routines have you adopted into your life that have changed like your daily life?
It's going to sound a bit crazy, but my sleep schedule, I'm very strict with it in Budapest.
It's good though. Yeah.
I get 8.5 hours of sleep.
8.5?
Yeah, that's what my Apple Health says.
Do you like set an alarm when you got to like go to bed and when you got to wake up?
Yeah, do you not have that on your iPhone?
I do. I just
it
don't
goes,
use
bing,
it.
bing, time for bed, and then you're like, okay.
Sure. So what's your like cycle, and why has that worked for you?
In Budapest, I think it's like 10 to 7 in the morning. So like whatever happens, I'll go to bed at 10, I'll wake up at 7. I mean, sometimes it does change, especially last year, because I made more friends and you can't always say no to plans. So I mean, it does differ sometimes, but I'm really grumpy when I don't have enough sleep, or I can't concentrate, I can't stay awake in lectures. So that's helped me a lot. And routine, like it sets a routine, which I think is number one. I mean, in Tux we had no routine.
Yeah, or we didn't have a good routine.
Something like that. I mean, you'd come home from the drill at like 3, and then you had a 7:30 lecture, so you'd have like 4 hours of sleep, if that. Whereas now it's like go to bed, wake up, lectures, gym, study, maybe drinks or whatever, but it would be like 1 or 2 maximum. Okay. So that's helped a lot. It's just like a set routine. I mean, when I was doing 2-in-1, it was so bad. It was literally wake up, I'd be at varsity by 7, study from 7 until 10 when it closed, go back home. You know, that was I'd have a tin of baked beans as lunch.
Going back to animals, what is a common mistake that pet owners make, and how can they avoid it?
Asking vet students for advice. Like, I'll get a message and they'll be like, my dog's so sick, and like, I have none of the diagnostic tools. I've got nothing to help you. Like, you need to go see your vet. Or leaving things too long. If they see something's wrong and you can clearly see it, and then you go to the vet, you're like, no, I only noticed this yesterday. And you're like, no, it's been going on for like a week or something. I don't know, just being on top of your pet's health. Like, if something does go wrong, the vet needs to know how long has this been happening, or how many times a day does it vomit. And like, there's specific questions they need to ask. Like, there's different types of vomiting, for example. Like, the one's just regurgitation, where it just comes from the esophagus. The ones where it's completely from the stomach. So you need to just be able to describe exactly what's going on with your pet. Like, how's it vomiting? Is it like really trying, or is it just like coming up? Or if it's got diarrhea, you need to take note of what it looks like, and, you know, give the vet a bigger picture than just has diarrhea, you know. Yeah, because it's like a puzzle, each animal that comes in. Like, you got to figure out what's going on. Okay.
And what kind of things have you, I mean, since doing veterinary medicine, what kind of things do you look out for in your dogs, for example?
Weight has been a big thing. I think a lot of people are a bit blind to it. Like they think their dog's not overweight because we're so used to seeing fat animals, whereas they really are. And then my dogs went on a diet. Especially like when we had the dissections, and now you have to open a dog, but there's so much fat, and like the fat's everywhere, like it's around the organs. It's like it's really not healthy, and that was a big wake up call. So Mac's looking good now. He's lost a lot of weight. But yeah, maybe that's also what owners neglect, is their dog's weight or their teeth or something like that. I don't know. There's lots, I think.
And Aki, I've loved this conversation. And it's been awesome to catch up with you while you're in South Africa for this brief period. But in closing, what are you most proud of?
Oh, that's also a hard one. I would say I'm most proud of myself and realizing the things in life that you need to change. So identifying what's toxic and what's not toxic. And I wouldn't be where I am today without that. Like if you've got a friend that's not serving you, okay, you're not serving me, move on. And I mean, like with doing that, I managed to finish 2 years of vet in one, which was not easy. And I didn't get, so you get exemptions. I didn't get a lot of exemptions. I got the least exemptions of the group that I went, and I still managed to pass, where a lot of people didn't manage. So at the time, I was just relieved that I was done, but I should actually be proud of myself that I did that. And I got a scholarship to pay for the rest of my studies and per month and all of that. So that was pretty cool. I must be proud of myself for that. I mean, if you told me in second year you'd be studying your dream degree, finished 2 years in one, and you just got a scholarship, I'd be like,
yeah,
no, absolutely not.
But maybe we got to go through that in a way. Like, I mean, I also wouldn't say I was the person I wanted to be during university.
Yeah, true.
And kind of going through that, I don't have a regret. Like, I'm glad that I was that person, because it showed me, it taught me lessons and took me to who I wanted to be.
Yeah, no, true. So yeah, I'm proud of how far I've come, like personal development, and with my friends and relationships and all of that. Like, I'd never thought I'd be able to survive long distance or trust someone as much as I trust my boyfriend. I mean, you know me, I had major trust issues. I mean, it was not a thing. But yeah, so proud of where I've come and proud of where I'm going.
Well, Aki, thank you for coming on Coffee Charge Conversations.
Thank you for having me.
I never thought we'd have a podcast together.
No.
But yeah, I mean, you've always been someone that I've gotten on with from the start. I feel like you're a very selfless person, and
thanks.
You care about animals, but you also care about people, even though you say you don't. And yeah, this has been awesome catching up with you. And yeah, I've seen your growth in the last few years, and I think you've got a lot to be proud of.
You too.
And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Aki.